pleasure to attend this seminar. Excellent presentations, and a special pleasure to have a chance to talk about the subject I've been quite interested in. Special thanks to Olaf Olofsson for inviting and giving me an opportunity to talk a little bit about not engineer. I'm an engineer, but I'm not going to talk about engineering items, and I think sometimes it's good to divert a little bit and have something else on the agenda for discussion, for fun. So I'm going to talk about communication and a specific subject, how to communicate with Russians, and I'll start with a blank page. That's what happened when Olaf and Vader and I we were attending a reception, a couple of glasses of red wine, and that's the beginning of a small talk. And then Olaf asked me where we're from. So now we are going. So now we started, and now we're enjoying ourselves. And I'm from Kazan. And by that time, Olaf probably didn't know, but I had already know where this conversation is going. And the next question from Olaf was, "Oh, I know, you are from Kazakhstan." I said, no, I'm not from Kazakhstan, I'm from Kazan, and I can also tell you that I'm not a Cossack either. It's a different part of the country. And that's a normal standard conversation I've had many times. But okay, we're done. But then Olaf raises a very interesting point, and I had never heard it before. And it's very obvious, but then he says, "Oh, it's like in Norway." And I'm just puzzled, Kazakhstan, Cossacks. And when he says, "It's like Christian Sand and Christian Sund." And I said, "Yes, of course." So, all I'm saying that letters and words are very important, and if you drop old Christiania into the same picture, you have exactly the same triangle of uncertainties and misunderstanding. With all due respect, I would argue that probably very few people ever tried to attempt to travel to Kazan and ended up in Kazakhstan by mistake. I think they would have figured out. But I bet that regular people serving SAS counters or Norwegian counters at Christian Sund or Christian Sand have puzzled people, approaching them and accusing them most likely of mismanaging their ticket reservation. So letters are important, words are important. And what I would like to point here is that, and I will talk a lot about words, and my point here is, let's pay attention to what we say and how we say. And even I would say, I would go as far as saying, normally we say that words is a reflection or either a phenomena or an object, but I would even go further, and I would say, if you don't have a word reflecting a phenomena or an object, it means that this phenomena or this object do not exist. And I will show you some very interesting examples to illustrate this point. But that will come a bit later. But first I would like to say that Russians belong to ethno-linguistic group Slavs, and origin of this word in Russia is from Slova. And Slova is direct translation, it's a word. Usually, so it was denoting people who were able to understand each other. And eventually we have many languages, and sometimes we have problems in understanding each other. So this is a Russian alphabet, 33 letters. We used to have more. Four letters were eliminated by Bolsheviks after the Lenin's revolution. We have very little difference between written and spoken language, and we hardly have any dialects. So I think Norway is probably a champion of dialects. I don't know if you are number one, or at least you are in a front tier in dialects in the world. I think Russia is somewhere at the bottom. So it's a vast country, but you'll travel for 8 hours by plane. You land up, let's say, Vladivostok, and people speak more or less the same dialect. There are, of course, a few deviations, or there are some dialects, but they're quite difficult to spot. And CIA defines Russian as a language which is more difficult than German, but easier than Korean. So, Olaf, Eric, when you go to Russia, you know the challenges ahead of you. So it's not as difficult as so let's talk about verbs. That's something I borrowed from Peter Norman Vage, a Norwegian writer. He perhaps had borrowed it from somebody else in turn, but nevertheless, I want to talk about the way how Russians describe objects. And this is a typical example. So in English language, or the same in Norwegian, you have a foot, a leg, and a thigh. Russian don't care about that. And that's it. And actually, in English, you say, "Give me a hand." But sorry, I need to now go to the next one. So in the same with the hand and arm. Again, Russians don't care. It's just another limb, and let's give it one name, and ruka. And that's why in English, at least, people say, "Give me a hand." But in Russia, the direct translation would be "stretch your hand," because hand is a very long object in the Russian language, and it's much shorter in English. And it appears that, but don't take it wrongly. Doctors, they know, they have special. It's not like they don't know where to cut or where to do. So there are shoulders, under shoulders, low arms, but layman people don't use this kind of definition. So it's just a limb more or less. So it looks like that for Russians are not very centered on details. They kind of do not define word in a very precise terms. So what do the Russians do instead? The Russians instead concentrate on attitude. And let's continue this example the way you can, but this example is not related to that specific object. It's related to all nouns. And all nouns, at least most of the nouns in Russian language, they have a significant number of argumentative or diminutive derivatives, which tend to show probably the size of the object, but it's more transferred into showing an attitude, not the definition of the object. I do not define the object precisely, but I'm very keen on defining my attitude to the object. And just to give you an example, so this is a hand. In Russian it's called ruka. And we know that it's not actually ruka, it means something else, but nevertheless. So, and when we take another example, and it's still a hand, and I can call it a hand in Russian, but if I would like to make a compliment to a lady, or denote a hand of the baby, or to show some positive attitude, I will call it ruchka. And if I have a person with a very large, powerful hand, in English it's still a hand, but in Russian it will be ruchiche. And if I have a baby's hand, then in English it's hand, but in Russian it would be ruchinka. And if I have a hand which belongs to a very tricky, slightly nasty person, then I would call it ruchonka, denoting that there is something tricky happening here. So this hand is not doing something which it's supposed to do, but in a very nice way. So this is an example of like how different verbs develop or how they live in different languages. But my point here is that I don't think it's as the freedom is very often it's socially determined. The freedom is defined as your freedom within the society, which by a sort of logical thing means that it's not freedom, because you cannot be in this society, follow all the rules, and you cannot be free. You are limited by, but the volya in Russian vilya is where you are basically have your own will. You are completely independent, completely free from all obligations. And I think in Norwegian culture there is a similar phenomenon, and argue if you wish with me, but there is this idea of solitary wandering in the mountains, among Norwegians. I think that's the closest to definition of the Russian volia. Or you have also the same in Hollywood films. Every second film by Clint Eastwood is also about free will by individual person, be that a cowboy or a rocky policeman or just an elderly man. Or maybe every first film by Clint Eastwood is about Vilja or volia. So this is just an observation. But let's continue our journey into the world of words. And there are some words I don't like. And this is a word which is sort of very common, authorities. And authorities comes from authors. And authors are just people who write, so they write text. And the reason why authorities have some kind of the power is because 500, 600 years ago or 1000 years ago, very few people could write. So if a person was writing something, he had an authority. And that's how it was spread into the society. These days everybody can write, so hence the attitude towards the authors is probably less respected than it was many years ago. But in Russian it's translated as powers. Yeah, so, and you do not mess with powers, first thing. And the second, it's funny to observe how the word power developed, because during Soviet Union this word was applied in a slightly different setup. There were state organs of powers, there were regional organs of powers. The word powers was never used on its own. And when during sort of the shift from Soviet Union into Russia times, it's kind of the long definition was dropped and the word powers emerged as a pure synonym of authorities. And powers, I mean, they are your rulers. And I dislike that a lot. This linguistic semantic exercise, I think it's very important in a way how ordinary people may perceive the world around them. And let's take another example. It's also not my favorite word, but definitely this word needs help, and this is this chap. I'm not cynical, cruel guy. I like babies, but this baby is not my favorite, not because of this nice creature, but because of this chap. And he is also very depressed. And my theory is that one will get very depressed if you sing all your songs about one word. And it's all about baby this, baby that. So I did a very thorough scientific research, and I kind of collected all the synonyms which Justin Bieber could have used instead of the baby. And I ended up with this list. He could have sang about Little Darling. It was used once by Beatles in 1967. He could borrow from Quentin Tarantino, Honey Bunny, Sweet Cat Sunshine, Pumpkin Honey. Honey is probably from CIA, KGB. But that's more or less I found some more, but they were so peculiar, I would never recognize them as synonyms for these. So, in Russia, I also wanted to make a list, but then I gave up because it's actually impossible. So I just concentrated on the group of objects. And if you want to address somebody you love, you can come up with a lot of synonyms to address baby. You can call this person by little pets, more or less any pet. You don't call a person little pet, but you call them little dog, little cat, or little mouse, or whatever. But again, it does not sound like that. It's one word. So because I explained to you that you can call a mouse, mishka, or whatever. Birds, little animals, like if your boyfriend is a bit of the weight, you can call him my little elephant. Flowers, shades of colors. So my son's nickname is Little Gray, because Gray sounds very similar to his name Sergey. And very often or sometimes his mom calls him my Little Gray. Fairy tale characters, body parts, like little cow, physical objects, snowflake, little ball, and you can invent any word. You can come up with a word which it sounds nice, and it can become your kind of secret code. Nobody else will understand that you are addressing this person or why you're addressing, but it kind of becomes a secret code language between two lovers or within the family and so forth. So I think Justin Bieber needs to look into a dictionary, get more synonyms, and his life will get much better, unless he starts thinking about environment. So, art of translation. How do you translate? So, first of all, there are certain things which translators invented, like Russian coffee. Russians don't even know that it's possible to drink coffee with vodka. Travel outside. Russian salad. I came across it's only in Norway, but shrimps is not like the top of the gastronomic agenda in Russia. Russian roulette was invented by a writer, an American in 1930s. And probably it's a reflection of the character, but it's an American invention. And unfortunately to you, not to me, a lot of things are lost in translation. I sort of explained the Russian affection. It's impossible to translate. You cannot write My Little Elephant. So you will come up with a baby translation. Russian humor, it's a very interesting subject. I find it very unfair that some people say, oh, there is a British humor or whatever. I think humor is a humor, and Norwegian humor is just excellent. But I find that the difference comes more like in chords, at which time, when, and how you are allowed to make jokes. And in Norway, I feel that there is some kind of the chords that people behave in a way that they somehow give a signal that now I'm making a joke, and the joke is very funny, and when it's kind of finished. In Russia, you don't need to give a signal. You can just say something in a very serious manner, and other people may misinterpret that, and they may think that I'm stupid, but I'm just sort of, I need to calibrate myself to whom I communicate, and I know that to a Norwegian I need to give a signal, like, and now, but to a Russian I'll just start cracking the joke, and he or she would understand it immediately. I don't know how they do it, but they manage to do that. Russian poetry, everybody knows about Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, and it's great, but if I would attempt, which is very kind of probably a dangerous thing to do, but if I attempt to argue the input of the Russian poetry into the general cultural heritage of Russia, I think it exceeds the input from the Russian literature. But I never seen any translation of the Russian poetry. I believe that one can find some, but it's lost. And Russian cursing, it's a very fascinating subject, so probably next time. There are some cases of translation which is strange, like roller coaster in States is called Russian mountains, sometimes in Russia it's called American mountains. And when, from time to time, one can observe politics in translation. So, Ivan the Terrible, these are the British friends of Russia, sort of came up with this name, and terrible means horrible, but actually the actual name is the name of the Orthodox Church, which means conservative, out of date, and so forth. The Russian original name for that is a righteous church, the church which is right. Names, actually a lot of Russian names are coming from Norwegian Viking times. My name is Igor, so it originated from Ingvar. I have a colleague in my office, his name is Ingvar, and I'm telling him that he and I have the same name, and he doesn't believe me, so he doesn't. And actually, I did not put this slide on, but there are some names of Russian origin which now perceived to be as Norwegian names. So talking about the names, let's see how it sort of develops. So let's take two examples. Let's take the example for girl, a Norwegian girl, Kari Norman, and I took the name of my daughter, Maria Kopsov, and we also use patronymic second name. So my name is Igor, so she must be Igorevna. So this is my, her second name is my first name, slightly changed. So, and if you want to try to attempt to call Kari Norman in a variety of ways, you can call her Kari. In Russia, I can call my daughter Maria, which is quite formal, extremely formal. If she is attending an office meeting in Russia, she may be called by her patronymic name, Maria Igorevna. And then there are a lot of different nicknames. Some of them are just nicknames, some of them give an attitude in the same way as described earlier, with different sort of little, big, and so forth. There are diminishing nicknames as well. Sometimes diminishing nickname like Mashka can be really disrespectful, or it can be a sign of very close connection. Again, it all comes from the context of conversation. But these are just a few examples, so this is actually the full list. Short names. And some of them I don't even recognize. I would never thought that I had to Google it or Wikipedia it. Some of them do not sound familiar to me at all. And this is a list which I compiled. I'm very proud of it. I've been living in Norway for quite some time, and of course our languages are very polluted by English, by German. All languages have apotek, banan, apelsin. So I am not talking about this superficial language sort of words. I'm talking about the words which we have a historical background. Sometimes you get a word and you feel that there are centuries and centuries, and some of the words form the core of the language. You know that this language, even if this word was borrowed from another language, it happened 1,000, 2,000 years ago. So I made kind of a collection, and some of these words actually came up to me as kind of in a moment of observation. I've been using or coming across them many, many times, and when suddenly I'm struck, oh gosh, it's actually there is equivalent in another language. And if you look at sort of such important words as like word in Russian language, Russia used to be called Gordorika by Vikings, but the word "gord" in Russian origin now denotes gorod, which means town, city. Or if you say yes, in Russian it's gost, glad, in Russian it's gladki, and this list is very long. There are some very beautiful words like chare. In Russian there is a word chare, which means slightly different. Chare is attractiveness or being attracted to in a kind of fairy tale way, I would say. And it took me ages before I actually spotted it. I knew chare in Norwegian, I knew chare in Russian, but because they have slightly different meaning, it never crossed my mind that this is actually might be the same words with the same origin. And you can see that these are the words which form the foundation of the language. These words have been with people since the formation of all the nations. And that's sort of can continue and continue. Like smart in Russia, there is a better word for taste, but actually there is a derivative of taste, which is also called smak, but it is kind of it more relates to something very tasty rather than just a taste. Several slides now. I don't know how many words, but because I'm not a linguist, I guess if a real professional will sort of put his or her head into that, they'll probably find many more. But I find this list very peculiar and very funny. And that's what we talked about: vilja, order, and we talked about power. So actually, hold, Norwegian, and it's Ukrainian, but in Ukrainian, hold pronounced as vlad, and it means rule, authority. I don't know if many of you know, but he spent a few months in Russia, closer to the end of his life, and he was very fascinated by the similarity between the mythology between ancient sort of Viking Norwegian times and the mythology and the geographic names in the Caspian and the Black Sea region, which is not only Russia, which is also Azerbaijan and Armenia as well. So once again, thank you very much. I'm very grateful for the chance to talk about this. I go very often to conferences talking about wind, oil and gas, subsea and so forth, but so rare I have a chance to talk about this fun stuff. So special thanks to you. Olaf, Eric, thanks a lot for allowing me to do that. And since we started, sort of when you were introducing me, you were telling that Olaf Olsson are moving into Russia now. So I believe that Olaf Olsson is a great company. I've had the pleasure to work with Olaf Olsson for probably 4 years now, with fish farming, with wind, and it's all. I always meet professional people, but we all professionals, so it's not difficult to meet the professional people. They're everywhere. But I always meet nice people, friendly, always in a good mood. And that's sort of the rule of thumb I have. If you meet nice, friendly people, even if you are discussing Croatian orders and things like that, but if you meet nice people, that's an indication that it's a healthy company, and the company is doing great. And from dealing with people, I get that impression. So, but since you are going to Russia, and I think you have all the expertise and all the know-how in order to go abroad, I don't know if you sort of your venture into Russia will be permanent, but I wish it to be so. So, I have one closing slide as well. But if you have some problems with luck, so you know who to call. So.